everyone. This is Theology Mom, also known as Krista Bontrager, and I want to welcome you to this edition of the Theology Mom podcast. As you can see, I have a very special guest. This is my daughter, Emily Bontrager, and glad to have you here. This is the first time we're ever kind of doing some content together.
Yeah.
It'll be cool.
I'm excited.
Yeah. So maybe we should start off by having you kind of talk a little bit about your interest in gender theory, because we're going to look at some clips today and have you comment on feminism and feminists and gender theory. So we should start by saying, like, you don't have a PhD in gender theory. You're not trying to pass yourself off as an expert. It's more of a hobby for you. That would be a way of saying it?
Yeah, it's a hobby. I'm interested in gender theory and feminism and learning about that. I've loosely read Judith Butler, and I'm familiar with the kind of critical theory side of those issues. And my background is in English, and I have a bachelor's degree in English writing. So I've, done some work in the kind of critical literature theory side of things, and feminism and gender theory is heavily used in that field. So, yeah, I'm excited.
What made you want to do a deeper dive? Because I know in college you had to take a class on critical theory from a literary perspective, but you're not in college anymore. You don't have to read these books.
Yeah.
And so what made you want to continue with engaging in that content?
Yeah, so the question is, Emily, why do you subject yourself to continuing to read these people?
Yeah.
And I think the answer is, I just find it interesting. It's something that so many young women my age are caught up in, whether or not they agree or disagree with mainstream feminism. And issues of gender are very just prevalent topics of conversation within our culture today. So I'm very interested in kind of thinking about those things from a Christian point of view, because they're popular topics and they need to be thought about from a Christian perspective. Who else is going to do that? You know? So
I think you're raising a really important point, because it's one thing for Christians to say, I don't hold to this framework, but it's another for some Christians to come along and say, let me learn about this framework so that I can begin to comment on it and how it compares and contrasts with historic Christianity.
Yeah. And I mean, much like the race issue, when someone comes along and says, why don't you care about women? Why don't you want to empower women? It's like, well,
I'm a
women
woman.
are great. I want, there to be opportunities for me to go off and pursue a career and, freedom and all these things. So, it's not an irrelevant issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be able to have thoughtful Christians comment on it. Now, I know that there's, people working on this kind of the secular side of things. What's a voice that people might look into that they might not know about on the Christian side of the conversation of gender issues?
One person I would recommend, she doesn't do a lot of interviews, but she has a couple that are out on YouTube, is Abigail Favale. I think I'm pronouncing her last name right. She is a Catholic, and she does a lot of really good work in the feminism gender theory space from a Christian perspective. She used to be a feminist, and her background is in literature, and so she does a lot of work thinking about these issues. But then when she kind of came to faith, she had a radical change in the way that she looked at the issues of feminism, and has really started to develop kind of a Christian way of thinking about these things, very much informed by the creation that God has made. And I always enjoy listening to her. She also has a very dry sense of humor, so it makes for a great watch.
So some people might have questions about a Catholic scholar, but we should probably point out that there are many quality Catholic ethicists and scholars who Protestants actually usually tend to borrow from, if we're honest. So there are many traditional or historic Catholics who work on theological issues. And just because they're Catholic scholars doesn't mean that they're progressive or anything of that nature.
She's very thoughtful, very informed by scripture, and I would say that her work is probably relevant to Christians regardless of your denomination. It's important, even if you maybe disagree with her on some points.
Okay.
It's worth a look into.
All right, cool. All right, with that, let's get into it. So give us a little setup here of what we're going to be watching today. We're going to watch 3 clips and comment on them.
Yeah, so we're going to be reacting to a Vice panel. Vice is a news outlet, news organization. They hold sometimes debates or panels where people from different backgrounds or political ideologies will come together and debate or just have a conversation about really, hot topics.
Now, Vice isn't a Christian platform.
No, they're not.
Okay.
They're pretty progressive,
So they tend to platform more progressive voices.
Yeah. Yes, they do.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. So we're going to look at a video. People can go watch the whole thing on YouTube. It's called Anti and Pro-Feminists Debate Abortion, Trans Rights, and #MeToo.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how the people who are just asking questions in the panel are characterized, even in the title here, as anti-feminist.
Yeah.
So we're going to kind of see how that plays out.
Who wants to be anti-feminist?
Yeah.
Right? Anti-woman.
Yeah. So, all right, let's get into it. So this first situation that we're going to watch is, we should say that this panel is quite diverse. How would we define diverse in this context?
It's got, people from very progressive leftist way of thinking about these issues, and then a couple people are in the middle. Some are more leaning one way than the other. And then you've got a couple of maybe not outright conservative people. I'm not entirely sure the backgrounds of all of these people, but I think they're in the conservative space or conservative.
Okay. But we have a disabled person.
Oh, right, yeah.
We've got a couple of people from different ethnicities.
Yeah, that too.
We've got I'm going to guess a non-binary person in there.
Yeah, there's at least one biological man on this panel.
Okay. All right. So with that, let's get into it. We're going to watch them try to define feminism.
I think feminism is attempting to say, okay, the first thing we agree on is that there are barriers and friction to what I need and what I want based on the fact that I'm a woman. What it ignores is that, and what privilege is that you may not have to think that being a woman and being a black woman and being a black woman who has a disability, for example, impacts you further. You have more barriers, you have more friction, you are less able to get what you want. You're undervalued in a way that's okay, well, that's life. That's what I mean by equity, and that we're able to, without friction, all get the same needs met.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, see, I disagree with that. I think life is easier if you're a girl, actually.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of benefits that men don't have. I'm not going to speak anything to race. I'm just talking about gender specifically. It's usually an excuse. Honestly, I think as a girl, you have equal opportunity in the world. I think there's benefits. For example, we have quotas for women in specific jobs that are given to us that aren't given to men. So yeah, I would say it's easier being a girl.
Just from a viewpoint over here, though, it seems there's a lot of pretty privilege in what you're saying, and that you're white and you present.
Do you think I'm pretty? Thank you.
I think that you present in a way that beauty standards have accepted.
And
so
they call me ugly on the internet all the time. They be roasting me daily, I swear to God.
I don't mean to say I think you're gorge. I just mean that there a certain value that we give to certain bodies.
I mean, let's also dig into why these quotas exist and why these, what you're calling
because
privileges
we want
exist.
special treatment.
No, it's because there have historically and presently in most jobs been fewer women and because of sexism.
Okay, so that was a little short clip there, and they're kind of volleying about whether or not it's good to be a girl. It's good to be a woman.
Yeah, the question was, is feminism alive today? And so they're attempting to define what feminism mean or what does it mean to be a feminist.
Maybe that would be a good thing for us to talk about a little bit, because that's something you've taught me, is that there's actually different streams of feminism now. It's kind of fracturing. And first wave feminism was more of the like 150, 120 years ago, focusing around the women's suffrage movement, working and that sort of thing. Then we had kind of second wave feminism, if you will, after World War II.
Yeah.
Okay.
About there.
And then women are leaving the home more, and there was this kind of question of anything you can do, I can do better kind of feminism, And then we get into more third wave feminism, from what I understand, is more like early 90s.
Probably
in
more
there.
like the sexual revolution.
Sexual revolution,
So
okay.
Women, abortion rights.
Okay.
Things to that of that.
Okay,
of
late
that
60s,
nature.
early
Yeah.
70s type
Yeah.
of thing. Okay. And now we're in possibly fourth wave feminism. So break that down for us, like help us have the landscape of when people are out there engaging with others, the different streams of feminism.
Yeah, so feminism today is, to my understanding, fractured. So you have the kind of what we see as mainstream feminism, which accepts the premise that trans women are women, that there is, being a woman is more about a feeling, what was that thing?
A vibe.
It's a vibe.
Okay.
But there's also things like abortion are kind of the concrete, abortion, the pay gap, those are kind of the concrete things that feminists in the mainstream feminism that they accept.
Access to women's sports, the idea of, I don't know the proper term, but men who are wanting to transition to women, that they should have full participation in women's sports.
Yes,
Okay.
because they're women. And so it's a feminist issue for trans women to be in women's sports because they are women. And so it kind of makes it a trans and feminist issue at the intersection there.
So if we were just to put a label, I know some people are so very averse to labels, but for the sake of the conversation, let's put a label on it. What do we call that particular stream of feminism?
They don't really have a name for themselves, but what I would probably term them is mainstream feminism, because it's what is the feminism that you see most often.
It's out there in the social media.
Yeah, it's in the Disney movies. It's in the the everywhere that you kind of see feminism. Usually, it's that mainstream feminism.
Okay, so trans women are women.
Trans women are women. Trans women are in women's sports.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So what's another stream of feminism that people might run into?
Another big splinter group is the gender critical feminists, which the mainstream feminists refer to the gender critical crowd as TERFs, trans exclusionary radical feminists, meaning that they do not accept the premise that trans women are women. They hold to biological sex. So being female is something immutable, something that you cannot change, something that, you shouldn't allow biological men into women's spaces because of the dangers to biological women from trans women.
So is this kind of the Martina Navratilova, J.K. Rowling stream of feminism?
Yeah.
So these aren't necessarily Christian people, but they are people who would agree with us that sex is immutable, gender is and sex go together, and they are immutable.
Yeah.
But they might still be part of the LGB crowd, but they're just minus the T.
Yeah. One of their big things is kind of fairness or equality for lesbians, because a lot of trans women will say that they are lesbian and go on lesbian dating apps and try to get lesbians to sleep with them. And it's, if you're lesbian, it's like, well, that's not, you don't want to do that, that is scary and not something that you want.
Yeah.
So their big thing is kind of justice for that issue. So they're very pro LGBT, but with the T, that's kind of been the point at which they've had to kind of step up and say, we think this is actually kind of dangerous. And it's not to say that they don't accept, transsexuals, so people who actually have gender dysphoria.
Okay.
Who transition and live their lives as men or women, but still acknowledge that I am a biological man or I am a biological woman. Kind
of the old school transsexuals.
Yeah, so people with a medical diagnoses.
Yeah. So again, these are sometimes called TERFs.
Yeah,
TERFs is a derogatory term, though. It's what mainstream feminists call this group of feminists as a derogatory term.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, would people in this, voices in this stream, be an account on Twitter like Gays Against Groomers? That they're trying to speak out against grooming children for trans things, but many of them who are involved in that movement are homosexuals.
Yeah, I would say Gays Against Groomers could fall into this category and probably overlaps a lot in terms of their philosophy and thinking about this.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't know if the people who
see themselves
as gender critical feminists.
Okay. So technical term, gender critical feminists, derogatory term, TERFs.
TERFs, yeah.
Okay.
And some of them have taken that and embraced the label, but
all right. This is very confusing. Okay.
Lots of.
Now, also in that stream of the gender critical, one of the things I've heard is that there's kind of a movement among the trans community, like you said, to even call it transphobic if you're a lesbian and you don't want to date a trans person.
Yeah, it's considered transphobia to be a lesbian and be attracted to biological women.
Okay. Also, another component of this group that is raising a question of the trans movement seems to be wiping out a particular group of women that we used to call tomboys.
Yes, there is that.
We might have two of those here on this stream. But when I was growing up, there was a way of thinking about myself as a woman that it didn't mean that I wanted to be a boy just because I like to play with trucks or go to karate class. Mm-hmm. Now, if you are a girl and you want to play with trucks or go to karate class, you might be a boy.
You're a boy.
Yeah. So there kind of is no room for people like us. And I've grown up to be, have a great life, a wonderful family. I just celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary, raised 2 girls. I've had an accomplished life and I've made a way to have peace with myself. Did I have some unconventional hobbies and things that I enjoy? Yeah. But that's something that is kind of being erased.
Yeah.
That there's no space for people like us.
That's probably one of the saddest things is girls who, and I think a lot of women can relate to this, when you hit puberty, everything feels weird. Everything changes very suddenly. Right. You are turning into a woman, and some people might be uncomfortable with all of the things that come with that. And you probably also maybe just like basketball and you like to hike and you like to do things that are not traditionally feminine. But I think, those things, they can be kind of picked out maybe, and, a little seed of doubt might come in, especially in today's time when you can scroll on, TikTok and Instagram and Twitter, and you might see, something that might put a little pebble in your shoe that, hey, you might be a man, or this is why you feel uncomfortable. And so it's the explanation for why everything feels weird. And, you know, it can become kind of a fixation for some people, is that this thing will fix my uncomfortability, which that maybe you see as something defective in you.
Right.
And that's just sad because, you know, being a tomboy, doing things that you love to do, regardless of whether or not they're traditionally feminine, is beautiful because you, a woman, are doing those things, they are feminine things.
Because you can do them in your own unique way.
Yeah, because you're a woman and you're doing a thing.
Yeah. So for you, when you were growing up, you liked archery, and you know, it's like, who's to say, you know, whether that's necessarily a man's thing? You know, you did it in your own unique way, and I always encourage you guys, hey, try new things and let's do it, and all of that. So
the things you do don't determine your gender.
Yeah. I'm glad you got that message. That was something I was trying to teach. All right, let's go on with the clips here.
Pearl, I saw your hand up. Yeah.
I think women want to sleep around and not have any consequence for it.
Hell yeah, we do.
Yeah!
Yeah, instead of, you know, taking personal accountability and being on birth control, they just want to like do whatever they want.
Hold on, I'm gonna comment on this real quick because this is a great clip. So purple turtleneck girl, I don't know what her name is, but she seems to be kind of the Ann Coulter of the group. She's sort of the conservative, and she says things in sort of a provocative way. And I'm thinking, like, you're in a room full of kind of left of center to totally leftist people.
She's literally surrounded.
Yeah. But she's being pretty fearless about it, of like, well, I just think that, you know, on abortion, women just like sleeping around and not having accountability. I'm like, I sort of agree with that. And then the woman with the kind of butch haircut sitting next to her, which you said is a famous influencer.
It's Eli Ehrlich.
Okay.
He's been in the news recently. I would say that. You can Google that.
Okay. So this person kind of says, well, you say that like it's a bad thing. So I think they're going to go from there into the discussion. But I thought, wow, what courage that woman had to just speak up like that.
And they were all like, yeah.
Yeah. There's no shame.
And then they kind of paused. And
what happened to abortion is we want it to be safe, legal, and rare. I mean, that was what they sold us on back in the early 70s. Okay, here we go.
Instead of, you know, taking personal accountability and being on birth control, they just want to like do whatever they want.
You say this like it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like you said. Can I also ask, do you have any care to empower women, or is disempowering women part of your like steez?
To see this as shame, insult, guilt, need to be right. Okay.
Okay, there's so much here. Like, there's so much happening in this clip. So, you know, she immediately reacts to, or the woman with the vest and the coins on it. There's one in the clip where she's an anti-capitalist. That's kind of her deal. But she immediately equates accountability and not sleeping around with disempowering women. So walk me through that train of thought.
Yeah, so that kind of comes out of, it's empowering, the train of thought is, it's empowering for women to embrace their sexuality when they have been oppressed and not been allowed to express fully their sexuality. And so that being promiscuous, being sleeping with multiple people, not having any consequences to embracing your sexuality is considered empowering, because I think it puts men and women on the same level, because they can both sleep around without any consequences.
I see.
Physically, at least. So that's kind of the train of thought.
And then purple turtleneck gal, the conservative, she immediately calls this out, which I think, again, she's very provocative and brave. She just immediately goes to, oh, you're trying to shame me. Okay, I get the ploy here, you know. But the power of the words is just so interesting. But this woman is kind of 2 steps ahead of all of the progressives in the room. She's not going to be shouted down on
Yeah.
these issues.
And honestly, if she wasn't saying these things, they would all just be kind of talking and having like a ego stroking.
They'll all be agreeing with each other.
Yeah, oppression.
Yeah, self-empowerment, abortion.
Can I also ask, do you have any care to empower women, or is disempowering women part of your like steez?
To see this as shame, insult, guilt, need to be right. Okay. Why is it empowering to sleep around?
No,
Why is
what
that
I'm saying
empowering?
is like, I feel like you do like take, like the
Why
way
is
you
it
speak on
disempowering?
women is very sort of like, women just don't want to do this. Women just don't have this. Women just wanted this.
Maybe I should
And I
change my
wonder
term.
why
Maybe I
you
should
have
say-
so much like hatred towards
I
women.
don't hate
Where
women.
does that root in? It
I don't
sounds
hate
like
women.
you do.
I am a woman.
This reminds me so much of conversations I had with Monique in the very beginning, because immediately Coin Vest Girl starts calling out a bunch of motives. You know, you're disempowering women, you hate women, all of this is like, now wait a minute, I don't hate women. You know, Monique used to do similar things to me, like, well, you're only saying this because you're racist, you have these issues, these beliefs. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not how I feel at all. I'm not a racist, you know, but it takes a lot of courage and sense of yourself to push back when someone's really coming at your motives.
Yeah, no, it's she's being accused in that of having internalized misogyny and like
Okay.
being internally misogynistic to herself. She hasn't awoken to the oppression that she's seeing. She is she hates women because of what she's been taught, and so what the woman is questioning Purple Turtleneck Girl on is, where did you learn this internalized misogyny?
That's so interesting. So again, if we were to think about the intersectional chart, what Monique and I call the matrix of oppression, you know, we're just on a different intersection.
Mhm.
We're on the intersection of sexism, you know, instead of racism, but the issues are the same. It's you know, this whole idea of being woke to your misogyny instead of your race, your racism against yourself.
I
That doesn't
don't.
mean you don't have
I could be
self-hate.
black and still be internalized racism.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'm saying
her.
specific things that you're saying, like women don't want to work, women don't want to this, women want to sleep around. Where did you learn these belief systems from?
Because, okay, the question was, why does abortion keep getting brought up? 40% of women that have had abortions have had 2 or more. 40%.
Good for
so,
them.
So what does that say to me? That means you're using it as a form of birth control, and they don't track the 60%.
What
to
kind
see-
of
Wait,
abortions?
Can you let me finish? They don't track the 60% to say who in the future has abortion. So to me, it's like, why are they dying so hard for abortion? They want to sleep around with no consequences, even though you have 41 forms of birth control.
Who does that benefit? I don't think that benefits women. I think actually that benefits men, because it means that men can have sex with you without consequence. It means that you can sleep with whoever you feel like, great, but there are consequences because women are the ones who get pregnant and carry babies and give birth.
It's very binary version of
yes,
sex.
because sex is binary, but please let me finish my point.
Oh, God.
It's tricking women into thinking that aborting a pregnancy, terminating a pregnancy is something to be celebrated, when in reality, for a lot of women, especially those who are doing it under duress, say that they've been raped, or that, you know, in the small circumstances where something really traumatic has happened to them, that's a medical decision. Or say that they're miscarrying and then they have to, you know, have an assisted termination. That's a medical procedure. It's not a celebration of, oh, look at the.
Wow, a lot happening there.
Yeah.
All right. So who's what is that? She from Australia, New Zealand, that gal in the end there?
Yeah, that is Sydney Watson. She is from Australia.
Okay.
She is a influencer. She makes a lot of videos on YouTube. She does like documentary almost style type video essays on these issues. She talks a lot about women and feminism and gender stuff.
So would she be more in the gender critical theory stream?
She would be more in the gender critical stream, I would think. Yeah, she's not a Christian, I don't think.
Okay. So in that clip, what we really saw was there's a lot of people in that room that seemed kind of ready to co-sign that abortion as a form of birth control, they're A-okay with that.
Yeah.
So no longer, we've left 1972, 73 of abortion is safe, legal, and rare. And now we're just going to use it as part of our everyday life as birth control. And they seem okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's empowering women.
Women are being allowed to embrace their sexuality without consequence.
Okay. So this would be more in the mainstream feminist.
Yeah, mainstream feminism.
Okay.
So I want to come at this from the position of an athlete.
Oh, Jesus.
So I play semi-pro basketball, semi-pro volleyball. So when it comes to like athletic spaces, I don't think that trans women should be allowed into athletic spaces because I don't think it's a fair. I think as female athletes, we work so incredibly hard for the little opportunity there is in women's sports.
Would this be a barrier for you?
There's no barrier. There's less opportunity in some industries.
That's what a barrier is.
There's less. It's not. No. It's
That's
based
what
on the
friction
market.
means.
Okay.
Hold on, guys.
Okay, so again, we work very hard for the little opportunity there is in the space because we're not as entertaining as the men. Sorry, we're just not. And so it's like you're gonna take the little opportunity that we're given. And the problem is like, we can't compete. We can't. Like, I'm 6 foot. If I go up against a 6 foot guy and I play basketball with him, he's gonna body me.
And what happens if I go up against you?
Even if I have years more of training. And so it's like you're taking away the little opportunity that we're given and we all work so hard for, and you're just giving it back to biological guys. It's like this will be the end of women's sports.
Have you tried confidence?
Eli, hold on, Minnie.
Sorry,
Eli.
confidence can't make me bench what a guy benches.
I don't
Confidence can't
understand
make
why
me
you guys
6'7".
are so hostile. She's sharing her
And confidence
experience
can't make
in
me
a
6'7".
specific
No, she's
field.
sharing
And I'd have to
trans
go.
No, she's not. She's a woman who's had an experience.
Okay, there's more to this clip. We're gonna watch the rest of it. But I want to say, like, isn't it interesting how in this conversation, and this is a tactic that people who are more progressive often use, is when the conservative point of view is being shared, then it's immediately labeled, well, she's not sharing her experience. She's just sharing her misogyny.
It's just hate.
It's just hate. But if a progressive person shares her experience, then it's, we should celebrate it, listen,
You're beautiful, you're brave.
yeah, not question, all of that. So they can just kind of, it almost gives you this permission slip that you can just write a whole group of people off and a perspective off in how it's being labeled. Oh, that's just internal misogyny, internal racism, that sort of thing.
Biological guys. It's like this will be the end of women's sports.
Have you tried confidence?
Eli, hold on, Minnie.
Sorry,
Eli.
confidence can't make me bench what a guy benches.
I don't
Confidence can't
understand
make
why
me
you guys
6'7".
are so hostile. She's sharing her
And confidence
experience
can't make
in
me
a
6'7".
specific
No, she's
field.
sharing
And I'd have to
trans
go.
No, she's not. She's a woman who's had an
it's always-
experience.
it's always- it's always the-
You guys are so obsessed with your own experiences and your own existence, and yet when a woman is sitting here telling you, I feel as though this is unfair and this is compromising and this situation is not helping women, you guys are like, meh, meh, meh. But when you're like, I'm a black person that did this, 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 and this, then it's valid and fair and viable.
Eli, I want to give you the chance to respond.
So this is basically a joke of a talking point. Everyone has biological advantages in sports. How tall are you?
5'11" and a half. I'm tall.
I'm 5'8". I am a trans woman. You would crush me. You would absolutely crush
bone
me.
density, wrist strength, muscle density. You can't switch those.
Yeah, exactly. You would crush me.
But also, Eli, you would never play at the level that Pearl plays because you would never get there.
So let me give you a few more examples here too. So Michael Phelps produced more lactic acid in his body, which caused him to swim better than any of his competitors. This was widely celebrated, and nobody contested it. Now, this is a performance-enhancing hormone. So we all have different bodies. And now I'm not saying that trans women who aren't on hormones should participate, but there are, I mean, every major medical and every major sports organization agrees that trans women who have been on hormones for between 1 and 3 years, depending on the organization, have the same competitive abilities.
The study that you're referencing had like 7 people participated.
That's misinformation, by the way. I'm referencing several different studies. I'm a trans woman and a researcher.
It's getting personal. I don't want it to be
a lot
personal.
of us live in this space where we're told that our opinions don't count because they're not the right kind of opinions, and we're constantly shouted over and talked over, regardless of what we look like, because there's one group in society that basically takes precedence, and it's frustrating. So yeah, of course, it's frustrating because when we try to talk about it, we get shouted down, we get told to be quiet, we get spoken down to as well. So there's hostility there for plenty of women.
Let's try to make this an opportunity to speak.
You're literally a white woman from Australia. You live in a bubble, and you're pissed that voices that have been silenced forever finally can be heard.
That's why they have the voice, because they speak up.
The cackling. Okay.
When I first watched that scared me. It really did.
Wow. But I think that that's a great example of, what we were saying is that, where the time that we're living in right now, if you have a certain point of view, you will be shouted down, laughed at, called names. So in that way, then as Christians, if we find ourselves in that position, I think we have to have some internal fortitude that this is likely to happen. This is likely how people are going to respond. There's no amount of being nice that's going to cause people to avoid that engagement with us.
Yeah. I think understanding that their reaction is on them, and it's not up to you to make them react in any particular way.
Mm-hmm.
You're responsible for your own reaction to things. And so, keeping a calm head, presenting the facts, being kind in the way that you're presenting the facts, but, ultimately not budging on the truth and what's true. And then just kind of allowing their reaction to be owned by them.
And knowing that you can't always mitigate that. You can't always prevent it.
They might start screaming at you, but that's not your fault.
Yeah.
And that's their responsibility, and that's the way that they're choosing to react, and that's not anything bad on you.
I think the flip side's also true, that when we're in the majority, we have a responsibility to make sure that we are not treating people in that disrespectful way.
Yeah.
And so if we find ourselves in the minority, understand that we can stand our ground and be polite, but that people might laugh at us and we can just hold our ground. But if we're in the majority, we want to take care to treat minority viewpoints with respect, even if we disagree with them.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, our battery's about to die, so we're going to have to be done.
All right. Cool.
But this has been a lot of fun. Let's maybe leave people with a practical idea of when they find themselves in engagements with feminists, to understand, first of all, they're going to have to discern which stream of feminism they're dealing with, just to be aware of that. But also to think about ways that the Bible uplifts women, that we have a better hope to offer people than the world does. Maybe you can just comment on that a little bit from your perspective on where you find that historic Christianity offers a better hope than this.
When I was in college and, watching feminism and how it was interacting with the people around me, one of the things I really kind of gravitated towards instead was looking at all of the examples of strong women in the Bible. So Ruth, Esther, Mary Magdalene, Priscilla, who, helped straighten out Apollos when he was, teaching some poor theology. I think just looking at those strong examples and understanding that there is a place for women in the kingdom of God, and that we have just as much strength and just as much opportunity to further his kingdom than as men do. And, we might just have a different, way of going about it, and I think that is, you know, equally as beautiful as what men are allowed to do in their role as, you know, leaders or pastors and things like that. So.
Yeah. So that's great, because I like to say that Matthew 28:19 and 20, the Great Commission, is a command that Jesus gives all his disciples. It's not just for men. It's men and women co-partnering to bring the gospel to the ends of the earth. You and I are not egalitarians, you know, on that side of the conversation. Some people that watch this might be, and that's cool. We can have that conversation. But we both come from faith traditions, you know, that are you know, looking to men for a level of leadership, but also affirming the robust contribution of women in ministry and in partnership with the Great Commission.
Yeah. And also, like, just think of the women in your lives that in your churches that, you know, there's probably, like, I'm noticing that in churches, there's usually like a couple of very strong women that are integral to the success of a church. And that's usually the case. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, in our church growing up, my church now, like, they're just strong women. We need them.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Well, thanks for doing this with me.
Yeah.
It was a lot of
Lots
fun. Yeah, it was great. So we hope you enjoyed this. We'll look forward to your feedback and what your thoughts are about critical gender theory and mainstream feminism and all of that. Thanks so much for watching. God bless.